Hello. Good evening. Yes, tonight we have a presentation by our police chief and the district attorney. Would you please introduce yourselves and then proceed?
Sure. So my name is David St. Pierre. I'm the chief of police. I've been the interim chief since July and formerly the chief since November 16th. So what I'm here for tonight is I have Deputy Chief Adam Higgins with me this evening, and we'd first like to welcome our newly elected mayor, as well as the new city councilors and the councilors that are returning for another term. I've invited our district attorney, Andrew Robinson, to join us this evening for basically what's going to amount to a question and answer session. He does have a PowerPoint that he's going to show you. I figured this would be a good opportunity for the new council to pose any questions of DA Robinson and myself as the police chief. We're going to talk a little bit about the impact COVID has on the prosecution of cases and crimes, the status of courts following the COVID, because they've had a backlog of cases. Oftentimes, councilors will receive complaints from their constituents and then bring those complaints to us, the police. As such, I felt it would be appropriate and helpful for the district attorney and the police to be able to field some questions of the council at the start of their terms in hopes of promoting a better understanding of obstacles and realistic expectations you have of both of us. I would say the pandemic has certainly caused a great deal of frustration to most people across the country, certainly including essential workers and emergency responders. The police have had to continue their sworn duties to protect and serve the community. We don't get to choose to work from home. We're not given the opportunity to do so. Though we do exercise some amount of discretion, we don't get to choose what to investigate and what to ignore. If there's a victim of a crime, we have to investigate, and we will investigate. Unlike many years ago, investigations and reports were much shorter than they are today and less inclusive of a lot of details. Today we have, even the smallest of cases that we bring forward to the DA's office includes body cam video of several officers, street cameras, surveillance from stores and such. So as such, when we do arrest offenders, it's not just arrest them, bring them to jail, write a quick couple paragraphs and call it good. It ties up an officer for a great deal of time. So I'd have to say the pandemic has certainly caused a great deal of frustration to most people. So while the COVID pandemic has certainly had an impact on the police and the district attorney's office, I truly hope we can at some point get back to some degree of normalcy. As the police chief, my main concern is the safety of the community and to address common complaints and concerns voiced by our community members. It has been increasingly difficult and frustrating to the police who oftentimes, as of late, feel their hands are tied due to the issues beyond their control, such as COVID or the jail not being able to take people due to COVID protocols, etc. So as the current chief and having been a law enforcement officer of almost 30 years, I found morale among officers is negatively impacted when they cannot act on a crime and make an arrest. Knowing the jail cannot and will not take in an arrestee due to COVID protocol, and now more than ever, officers and detectives, like I said, spend far more time putting a case together. We welcome any concerns that you guys get through, as counselors. And we'll look into them as strongly as we possibly can, but we need to make sure that you're aware of some of the obstacles we face, especially in today's, with the pandemic and the jail not taking people and such. So I'll introduce Andrew and let him take it from here.
Thanks, Chief. And thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight. I love being able to talk about what our office does. And I think a lot of times folks have a lot of misconceptions about what the DA's office does and what its role is. And so I like to take an opportunity to sort of describe what we do as a whole and what our office is comprised of and who works there. And then it really is about answering those questions. And so when offered an opportunity to come in and talk to you about what's going on and what challenges we have, I'm grateful that you are allowed to give us some time to do that. I'm hoping you can see my incredible PowerPoint presentation that I threw together this afternoon. The first thing I wanted to let you know is that the district attorney's office, which is a little bit different than other county offices, is actually composed of 3 counties, right? So we have Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford County. So I'm the district attorney for all 3 counties, and I have office and staff in each of those counties. We provide prosecution for 71 municipalities, townships, and plantations, 14 in Androscoggin, 21 in Franklin, and 36 in Oxford. Our district population is 195,000 people, breaks down by the different counties, Androscoggin obviously being the biggest. And we work with 29 law enforcement agencies, 21 local agencies such as sheriff's departments and municipal police departments, and then we have 8 statewide agencies that submit paperwork to our office. So whenever a crime is committed and a police officer does an investigation, they generate a report and all of the other material associated with their investigation, they submit it to our office. We then review it and make charging decisions, and we have to do that for all 3 counties. We have offices in Lewiston, Farmington, and South Paris. We cover court in Lewiston, Auburn, Farmington, South Paris, and Bridgeton. Occasionally we go to Portland to argue appeals before the law court. And then I figured, well, that's enough about the entire district. You're really interested in Lewiston. Our office here in Androscoggin County, these are the agencies. And as I look at it, it looks like it's testing your eyesight, but you know, these are the multiple agencies in Androscoggin County that submit reports to our office. Our office handles virtually all cases from low-level motor vehicle cases all the way up to attempted murder. But here's a distinction that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, and that is we don't prosecute homicides, we do not prosecute felony drug cases, we do not do welfare fraud or healthcare crimes and tax cases. Those are primarily done by the Attorney General's office, although it is not uncommon for our office to offer assistance or to have an ADA assist with an Assistant Attorney General. And this is probably a good time for me to introduce 3 of my guests. I have John Risler, who is the Assistant Attorney General responsible for the MDEA drug case prosecution for the state of Maine. He oversees all the drug prosecutors. And then our own Assistant Attorney General, Darcy Mitchell, who is embedded in our office. And so she handles all the felony drug cases for Androscoggin County, which includes the city of Lewiston's cases. And then Neil McLean is an Assistant District Attorney in my office, and he's been assigned all of the major felony crimes that occur, and he works directly with Lewiston PD and the detectives. But now I feel like I've ruined one of my next slides, so I'm going to speed through it real quick. If you said to me, hey, how are cases assigned in your office? Well, I just mentioned Neil, and he's the one that is responsible for the major felonies. He's a veteran prosecutor, several years of experience under his belt. He handles primarily the firearms cases, the aggravated assaults, the burglaries that come through our office from Lewiston PD. We have all the sexual assault cases, domestic violence cases, and human trafficking cases are assigned to a very specific prosecution unit that has 3 assistant district attorneys who specialize in these important and somewhat nuanced cases. All of our OUIs and major motor vehicle crimes are assigned to an experienced ADA who's considered an authority on OUI and vehicular manslaughter prosecution. She's relied on as a source for the entire state of Maine, and she handles all of Lewiston's OUIs, and unfortunately when the vehicular manslaughter cases come around. We have an assistant district attorney who's assigned to handle all of the misdemeanor matters that come through from Lewiston PD. In my mind, these generally, you think about disorderly conducts, criminal trespasses, criminal mischiefs. We then have another prosecutor who is assigned to handle the misdemeanor motor vehicle matters. Think operating after suspension, operating an unregistered motor vehicle. And then we have a prosecutor that handles the misdemeanor thefts. Mostly those would be shoplifting, is what you see come through. And then I've already given away the fact that Assistant Attorney General Darcy Mitchell is embedded in our office and handles the felony drug cases. So you can see we have a dedicated number of staff that focus on the cases, and they are the same individuals who are handling the Lewiston cases. So they have a level of familiarity of working with law enforcement, the officers that they're going to be receiving reports from, and then also if you see recidivists, individuals who are coming through regularly, it's easier for them to identify. Challenges, well, the chief hit on it. The number one challenge that we would have to talk about is the pandemic. And among other things, this pandemic has had a significant impact on the backlog of cases within the court. And if you said to me, well, what happened? What's going on? Well, in the beginning, the court shut down. And there was a few months there where we were only doing emergency sessions or hearings. And that would be, if somebody's arrested, they have to be in front of a judge within 48 hours. And so we would have their arraignments, but we were not having walk-in arraignments. So if somebody was issued a summons, it took months before they started coming back into court. And so from about March all the way through June, we did not have walk-in arraignments. And that's where the vast number of cases come through the courthouse. So they were just sort of stagnating. And then when we did bring them back, we had caps on the number of individuals that could be in a room at a time. So where typically you would have 100 people, we were only allowed to have 10. And so we were having to bring in it was like a trickle. It was just a very slow number of cases that were being brought through that could be initiated in the court. And then we still weren't having jury trials. So even though we started initiating cases again, we couldn't process them. We couldn't get to and I don't want to be presumptive, but so ask your questions as we go along, but you need the pressure of the jury trial or the final completion of the case before people really wrap their head around, we're going to have to resolve this, or we're going to have to make a decision, or I have to go to trial. And without that pressure, these cases just sort of lingered. There was nothing, an incentive or an impetus to resolve. Those backlog of cases meant they were not closing out and more were being opened, and the result was the entire system was getting overwhelmed. And if you said to me, well, what does that look like? I would say, well, stare at this little chart. And then I'd be like, no. Here, I'll zoom in. Androscoggin County, in 2019, in the month of December, so if you just took a snapshot and you said, how many cases are pending before the court? It was 1,815 cases that were pending, that just needed to be resolved. So that's in 2019, pre-pandemic. And frankly, we would have conversations all the time where people were saying, why is it taking so long? My God, the system isn't fast enough. You got to get these cases resolved. And this was just the normal course of business. In 2021, if you look right next to it, you will see we now took a snapshot in 2021 of December, and we have 2,641 cases. So we have had a 45% increase in the number of cases just pending in the court. I thought, boy, if I were sitting in your seat, you would wonder, well, what does it look like across the state? And I grabbed some counties that are sort of close to us. Cumberland County is busier than we are, but in 2019, they had 3,500 cases. In 2021, they have 5,200 cases. Kennebec, which is closer to us in numbers, they had 1,600 in 2019. They're at 2,200 cases now. And then take a look at Penobscot County. And what you're going to see is the county that didn't take any measures to try to limit the number of cases going into the courthouse to stop the backlog and the flooding went from 1,500 cases to 3,300 cases. So they've had a 116% increase in the number of backlog cases when you just take those snapshots and say, what did it look like pre-pandemic? What's it look like today? And they're swamped. And you would say to me, okay, well, what does that look like? How do you process those cases? And I thought I'd give you an example. This is last month's notice for jury trials for this month. So January's jury trial notice. And I highlighted for you. Take a look at the trial dates. January 12th through 14th, 18th through the 20th. And what does that mean? 6 trial days. This is your trial list. And so I broke it down for you because I didn't think you'd want to flip through the 37 pages. 37 pages worth of cases, 137 assigned cases, 73 different defendants. We are now putting cases, not all of them, but a good number of these cases are 2019 cases. We have 6 trial days. So by definition, what has to happen? Right? You have to see. If everybody wanted a trial, we can't. It's impossible. And the priority is being given to folks that are in custody. That makes perfect sense. Next, we look at the significance of the charge. If you have a gross sexual assault versus a criminal mischief, you're going to try the sex case to get closure for the victims and to get the case through to get the person sentenced. And then we go by age of case. So this list of 137 cases, we're set for jury trial, and they've whittled it down, not because they resolved, they just went through and selected what cases are gonna go. They're set for jury selection tomorrow, and there's about 18 cases. And we only have the 6 days, so they're backups. We're picking trials behind trials just to try to create that incentive to resolve. But ultimately, half these cases didn't resolve, and they'll roll over to the next list. Does that make sense? So when you look at that, you would say, okay, well, what's in addition to the backlog, what's happening? Well, the chief's already discussed. The jail has the protocols that have to be in place to ensure there isn't a COVID outbreak. Because when you're the state and you're taking people's liberty from them and you're requiring them to be in an institution, you are now responsible for their safety. And so they have to create these protocols that sort of create a quarantine area. So when somebody's arrested, they're brought into the quarantine area, but they have to make sure that they don't have COVID before you can release them into the general population, or else you'll create an outbreak. And as you know, over the last 2 years, we've learned this is not a perfect science, right? But they essentially have a limited number of beds in that quarantine area. And so during a weekend where it used to be someone would be arrested, they'd be brought to the jail, they'd be booked and put into the general population. Now, if you only have 9 beds and the 10th person to get arrested that weekend shows up, you don't have any room for them. So you have to start making determinations. What are we going to do to assess who is being booked and actually brought into that limited facility or quarantine area? And you do it based on public safety, right? And so where I think folks, if they were a chronic problem over the weekend or they were creating disturbances and they just wouldn't stop engaging in low level but nuisance type of behavior, they would be arrested, brought in, ultimately stay there for the weekend and get bailed on Monday. Now they can't do that. And so that's been one of the byproducts of the pandemic is even if you had enough space in general population, you can't simply just take someone off the street and put them in there because of the outbreak concerns. And there have been outbreaks, even with these safeguards in place. Impact on staff, this is true of everybody. I feel like, I can't just say, well, my own office, but true of the courts, true of law enforcement. When an outbreak occurs or when somebody's been exposed, you immediately, currently today, I have 2 people in 2 different offices that had to stay home when I had them assigned to be in court because of exposure. And we had to do the quarantine and then we're trying to get them tested and it takes forever to get a test. And we're just stuck in this. You never have a full complement. You never have a full staff moving forward with this backlog of cases that you're responsible for maintaining. The number of cases filed from July 1, 20 to June 31st, 21. This is a fiscal year. The only reason I'm using the fiscal year is because that's how the court catalogs their cases. Thanks, judicial branch. But these numbers have come down, right? During the pandemic, I think officers stopped. There was a period where they were stopped, sort of proactively stopping vehicles or looking at things. It was sort of a step back. But even with the numbers coming down, where we would have been typically, I think, around 5,000 cases, you can see we get about 3,367 cases. We know that happened during that calendar year. That's just submissions. That's not what came into my office. That means you have to resolve 281 cases per month in order just to stay status quo, not even get rid of the backlog. If everybody wanted a trial, and you've already seen the number of court days they're giving us on trial lists for 137 cases, for 37 pages. And frankly, in January, I think they're also trying to schedule some dates to get us to negotiate more. So maybe that's an anomaly, but even if we had 14 days, if people said to me, why do prosecutors negotiate? Why wouldn't you just be tough on crime and hold everybody accountable? And if anybody wants a trial, give them a trial and don't even talk to them. I would say to you, because look at the math. Look at what has happened with the criminal justice system. 281 people have to plead or their cases have to be resolved just to stay status quo. Does that make sense? And then we've still got the backlog. This would not even fix the backlog. Add to that, and here's the irony of it all. If you didn't even put a pandemic in the mix and you just said to me, okay, well, what's the complications with being a prosecutor? Well, one, we're overworked, right? We're trying to do too much with too little resources. And what you have to remember is if I bring a disorderly conduct charge, or I bring a gross sexual assault or an attempted murder, the Constitution applies equally to both of those cases. My ethical obligations, the constitutional and statutory obligations are the same. And so there's no, oh, well, you don't have to worry about discovery on a disorderly conduct. No. If you're charging somebody with a crime where they're presumed innocent and you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, and you have the obligations of providing them with all of their discovery and ensuring their due process, true for both cases, regardless of the magnitude of the charge. So when I talk about that, I think sometimes people think, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, it means when every case, when the chief talks about 8 hours of video, because it's not just the cruiser camera of the officer doing the field sobriety test, it's the lapel camera now, and it's the camera of the other officer who came to help maintain the scene. And so we've got all that, where it used to be 2 pages for an OUI. Now they're trained, and they got to give us every nuanced area. So that becomes a 5-page report. Where it used to be, okay, we would just take the intoxilizer result. Now we're getting the chemist, tests and the bath water tests and making sure they're all in compliance. And so what used to just be 2 pages, and you call in your officer and say, what did you see? It is now like, a multimedia publishing company endeavor coupled with 10 times the paperwork of what it used to be. So we're having to, just as the officers have to generate it, we have to review it. And when we do that, it takes time. But as you're taking time, one of the things that you're seeing with the pandemic is cases aren't closing. So our obligations, where it used to be, we'd have a case come in, we would fulfill our obligations, we would have the trial, or they would plea, it would be closed, and then we would start another case. So there would be sort of an offset. Now, all those obligations are remaining in place, and the cases are just starting to backlog. And so we have more and more victims that we have to keep up to date. And we have more and more motions that are being filed because they're sitting in jail for so long because they can't get a trial. We got to keep revisiting their bail. And these things exponentially become greater, and the prosecutor's caseloads aren't shrinking. Does that make sense? And so as you look at these cases, our obligations are there. And if you said to me, well, give me an example, Andy, what are you talking about? I had a theft, Class E theft, the lowest possible criminal charge you can get, of a bicycle with a confession. All right? A confession, Class E theft. This is the letter for discovery that I received from the defense attorney, asking for information to be provided by my office. Six pages, single-spaced paragraph. And the Constitution applies to this Class E theft, just like it applies to an attempted murder. So we're responsible for responding to this. And we have to take time. So when you talk about resources and where are you putting your resources and what are you focusing on, this is all a part of the equation, right? What does it mean? It means that while cases are pending, our office continues to be responsible for making sure victims are kept up to date, that we respond to motions filed by defendants, and that we prepare our cases when the court puts them on the list, and then puts them on another list because they couldn't get to it, and then puts them on another list. So we're just constantly rehashing the same cases, but you still got to take the time. The backlog does not allow us to close out cases, which means these responsibilities need to be fulfilled while more cases are being opened. And the people, the human beings involved in the criminal justice system are getting overwhelmed. If you said to me, well, what else do you guys do? I'd say, well, we do a lot, but things that might be relevant and that maybe people don't know is that we do trainings for our local law enforcement agencies. We always have an assistant district attorney on call within the 3 counties so that if an officer at 2 a.m. stumbles into a strange situation and they need some guidance, there's always somebody that's on call and can give the guidance and talk to them about what's going on. We maintain an open door policy. Open door seems to be more metaphorical right now, but folks know they can reach out to us, talk to us about their cases, and we can make decisions together. And that you should know that my staff is spending their weekends, their evenings. The emails are constantly flying. No matter how much I tell them, you got to take time, you got to stop, because the work is overwhelming. In fact, I was able to get a picture of an employee walking out of the office just on an average day. Thought I'd share it with you. Thank you for being so patient and letting me talk about what I see happening right now. Fact of the matter is, I wasn't sure, what areas you would like to talk about. So I'm happy to answer any questions and discuss what's going on, but I wanted you to have an idea of who we are and what we do. And I appreciate you letting me do that.
If I could just say one more thing too, thank you, Andrew, that's a great presentation. For us, the frustration, if you're gonna get constituent complaints, the general complaint to you folks you're gonna find is gonna be very de minimis crimes such as disorderly conduct, public drinking, prostitution, people hanging out on the streets, loitering, all of those general small offenses. And like Andy said, his office has to prioritize which offenses that he actually prosecutes. So you're gonna get everybody's speeding down Webster Street. Everybody's, you're gonna get those speeding complaints, the drinking in public complaints. It's very frustrating for the police, as you can imagine, because we walk up to people that are drinking right in front of us. They mock us. They know there's nothing we can do because the jail will not take them for a simple disorderly conduct. They will not take them for a trespass, urinating in public, any of those small de minimis crimes I call. So it's frustrating for the police officer, but that police officer still has to do a report. And if he's gonna charge somebody by summons, he still has to do the same report that he would if he arrested that person. More often than not, I can tell you, people mock us, they swear at us, it's frustrating for the officers. And I don't say this to, for you guys to feel bad for us. We do our job because we want to. We do our job because we have to. We're sworn to uphold the laws and enforce them. We don't do it because, we do get frustrated. I guess that's the best way to look at it, or to say it. But, I can't tell you how many times we've had people just swearing at us, and, there's 10 people, there's an aggressor, you want to take that person and just arrest them, take them to jail to set an example for the other 9 that are still behind. They know we're not going to arrest them. Then we write them a summons for public drinking, let's say. We wrote one woman 4 summonses in the last 2 months right here in Kennedy Park. She laughs at us and says, okay, that's great. I know you're not going to arrest me, and I know you're going to submit it to the DA's office, but they're probably not going to prosecute it because they have other things that they need to do that are much more important than a public drinking complaint. So for the police, I'm still optimistic that someday this will get back to normalcy, where people have a positive respect for the police, I guess, or a little bit of fear. I don't want to be the mean, evil police, never have, never will. I don't want to rule with an iron fist, that's not my job. I told Andrew earlier, I don't want to lock somebody up, throw away the key forever. I'm all for giving second chances and third chances, fourth chances sometimes, depending. But I wanted you all to know, that we're out there and we're trying our best. We're doing the best we can with what we have. From here, I guess we'll field any questions that you might have.
Well, I know you got questions, but let me just add on top of that. So what I have been doing, I have had discussions with the president of the Downtown Business Association, Mr. Dosty, Chief O'Malley, and then Chief St. Pierre. And what we do is, look, if you have somebody who is drinking in public, cut them the ticket. And when they come into court, we charge it. Drinking in public, as long as we can prove it, and there are elements to that crime. Remember, our standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, right? But if we can prove it, we charge it. Now, when the person comes in, everybody knows, if they say, I want a jury trial, I told you, we're picking juries for 2018, 2019. So this case is gonna see, 2025 before we actually have a trial on it. So what we do is we say, okay, we've looked at the options program that's housed out of Lewiston PD. So if the person's suffering some substance use disorder, we say to them, you go engage in services through the options program and bring back proof, we'll dismiss the charge. If the person is summoned for criminal trespass, because we have some folks that just pitch tents on private people's property, we say to them, the city of Lewiston, Councilor Clement, you recall, I think you were part of this meeting, gave me a list of all of the agencies that deal with housing and can help with folks that are struggling with homelessness. And so we take that list and we give it to them. We say, you go make contact with one of these agencies and engage their services and come back to us and we'll dismiss. So we're trying to connect them with services. We're trying to break the cycle, whatever the underlying conduct is, or cause for the conduct. We're trying to eliminate that and use this as an opportunity. When it gets to the point where it's just scoff, so when I hear it's the fourth time in the weekend, then we pull the diversion offer. Then we say, okay, well then that's gonna be an expensive beer for you, because you're gonna pay $100. And look, we're not getting 6 months in jail, right? That person's not going to jail for drinking a beer in public. But we can impose the fine and say, okay, there's a level of accountability and there has to be a consequence for the behavior. And so that has been our methodology of handling these areas. And then if somebody continues to engage in a behavior that we think is harassing or rises to the level of needing bail conditions, then they're getting arrested, and at a minimum, we're trying to get to the bail commissioner and get those bail conditions in place, and those conditions are don't return to that business. And then if they return, it's not just a trespass or a disorderly conduct, it's a violation of conditions of release. That's a new charge that's, you could put marbles in my mouth and tie my right hand behind my back. I won in that case 10 out of 10 times, right? So we are trying to take measures, but you can tell what we're doing. We're navigating this path through the limited resources we have and trying to identify the cases that need us to use the resources of the criminal justice system, but we're also trying to make it so it's a conduit to fixing the underlying issues, getting folks into compliance, and then get them on their way. That's what we've been trying to accomplish with especially those cases that I think the chief's describing there, which can be incredibly frustrating. All right, now, any questions?
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Clement?
Councilor Shalin. What I'm hearing here, I understand. I did 45 years behind a badge. It wasn't quite as frustrating back then. There was a lot more respect shown. And if no respect, there was a little bit of fear, and that certainly did not hurt things back then. What I'm hearing, though, is all of the problems. What can we do to affect solutions? I mean, we don't have the wherewithal. We can't give you more courts. We can't give you more judges. Maybe we need to go back to the old municipal judge system where we had court 6 days a week. But we can't affect that. But what we can do is we can put pressure in areas where maybe we can affect some change that will help you. We understand what you're going through. At least I think we do. I do. I hope that I speak for everybody here. We want to assist you. We want to square this away. I mean, our police department is taking it on the chin every day. And I know just what Chief is talking about. I see it. I'm a bail commissioner as well. Now we're getting, I got a call here recently for a COVID case. They didn't even want to take him out of the house. This guy was that bad. What do? Would you come over? No, I'm not coming over to the house. I'm not going to expose myself. We came up with a solution. Bail commissioners have a hierarchy we respond to, and we came up with a solution. I think your office got involved, and they came up with a solution that we got the victim to Bangor, I believe. And anyway, I guess what I'd like to know is what we can do to help you. Give us some avenues that we can put effort into, because we can't just do that and say, okay, it's solved. I understand it's a tremendous problem, and it's very frustrating. I mean, the courts, I don't know whether I blame them or not, but the lack of availability of court space, period. I can understand to some degree, but some of the things that have happened, I just don't agree with. I think I'm not asking anyone to throw caution to the winds, but we've got to be a little more reasonable in some regards. But let us know what we can do. We can put pressure. That's one thing we can do. And I think we will do that if we think it's going to help you.
Let me just, one quick blurb, and then I'm going to answer your question. The blurb is, you know what the number one problem for the courts is right now is judicial marshals. When you talk about folks leaving positions and that positions they're having a hard time hiring for, when Oxford County is having jury trials, we cannot have court in Androscoggin County because we don't have the judicial marshals or the screeners. It's this domino effect where we're just sort of rotating this very limited number of folks, and they've advertised and they've tried to hire, but it's the Great Resignation or whatever it is. And frankly, I think it's because judicial marshals who are amazing are generally retired officers, and now they're starting to think to themselves, maybe putting myself,
Exactly.
Right back on the front line when I worked so hard to get to this point in my life. But they're having trouble in that regard, and that's one of the causes. The fix, now look, I've told you what we're doing, right? We're looking at these cases, and this is how we think we're gonna navigate. If you said to me, well, ideally, Andy, what would it be? Some of these folks do not have the wherewithal, the ability to just make their way out and find the resources that I'm directing them to. I'm giving them a list and saying, here are the agencies that can deal with this. But if there were programs, or if there was a case manager or somebody that could be there on arraignment day that says, hey, this is what the state's talking about, I will take you over there now and I will connect you with these services. And maybe the liaison to say, this is what this person's dealing with right now and how the situation we found them in. There's oftentimes when folks are reaching the point that they're in court, their life is in turmoil and they're struggling on a lot of different levels. And even though with the best intentions, I'm coming in the room and saying, there's a path for you to fix this and address whatever the underlying issue is. I think sometimes it's like saying, to one of my kids, you should, this is what you got to do. And then you just, well, thanks, Dad. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, how do I get through this? The fact of the matter is, maybe I should be taking more time, because I appreciate the question, and maybe I should be taking some time to think through it. But initially, if you said to me, what's the roadblock? I think a lot of times we're telling folks, get a hold of the guy for options and talk to them about your substance use disorder, and they're going to connect you with services, and they will. But that person sitting in court, I might as well be, speaking in Mandarin. I don't know that it means anything, or they're in a place where it's meaningful. And having somebody who could say, listen, follow me, I'll get you there, and then make that connection, that would be huge. And frankly, I've had this conversation with the Restorative Justice Institute and asked them, hey, can you send somebody over and help us with this? And that's not really in their bailiwick, so they don't do case managers that way. And I've talked to other agencies that, can you help me and provide somebody? I don't have anybody in my office that can do it. But in my head, that connection, at a minimum, what it would offer me is the ability to say, we gave you every opportunity to fix this, to address it. And therefore, if we have to go forward now with the traditional penalty, a fine or a jail sentence, well, we did everything we could to get you out of this situation without having to do that. And it didn't work. So now public safety and accountability becomes the priority. That'd be one, that's me, riffing. This is Andy, riffing with the law. Here we are, but that's my initial thought.
Councilor Wasserville.
Thank you. I've never been called that before, so thank you very much. District Attorney Robinson, Chief, thank you for being instructed to do this. Thank you for coming and explaining. I have a three-part question. In campaigning and talking to people in the streets, and in the industry that I'm in, I have the pleasure of speaking to a lot of law enforcement officers. You explained about the Constitution, and everybody has the same rights all the way down. The Constitution hasn't changed, but the paperwork is just going crazy, and we're losing officers off the street for some of these things. Is there a need for this much paperwork? And I know you just showed me 6 pages from
Discovery letter in 2014.
Yeah. Correct. And I'm just hearing from the beat cop, the new cop that's coming in, says, Lord have mercy, I'm on an 8-hour shift and I'm 6 hours in the office writing paperwork. I can't be out on the street. So that's one question. Is there any way to lessen some of this paperwork? And I know the stuff that they're requesting from me at times, I'm going, I just gave you 3 other copies. You see it right there, similar to the confession that you already had. It's like, how many times can we show you the same thing? So that's first question. Second question is, what is the percentage of cases that are coming through your office that is really affected by mental illness in our community? I'm seeing just a staggering amount of issues with mental illness. And I'm sure that's just filling up your court system and through the police department. And lastly, is some of the backlog that's happening right now due to some of the newfound restrictions that the court is making upon themselves? And, you're saying only 10 people in a room. If there were 20 people in a room, maybe we can go faster. Is it because, the judicial system saying, okay, we're only going to be open 1 week a day, 1 week a day, 1 week a month for court cases. What have been the new restrictions that have come down, and who has made those decisions to tighten the opportunity for you to get into court?
Yeah.
Is that an issue?
That is not an issue any longer. The court has been very sensitive to this and aggressive, but they started off, what I was describing is shutdown, right, with just emergency hearings. Then graduated to 10 people at a time, and sort of then they started giving us slots, and so you'd have 10 every hour. They have now opened it back up, and so I would say with the court is trying to proceed business as usual, but frankly, all it takes is one person at the door to say, I've got COVID, I've been exposed to someone with COVID, and their case that's an immediate continuance, right? And that's, so that person leaves, and now that case doesn't go anywhere, right? Or worse, this happened in York County, the person is sitting in the middle of the arraignment room with 100 other people and stands up and says, I don't know why I'm here. I told everybody I had COVID on the phone. And so the entire room had to be vacated. So there are events like that that are slowing things down. But the court itself, almost to the point of a certain level of discomfort by all the people that are having to go in the courtroom, is trying to ramp back up. And we're having jury selection tomorrow, right? And we've had a pretty regular, jury selection means you're bringing a large number of people into the courtroom in close proximity, and they're doing it. So I think they're doing everything they can now, but the impact has already occurred. And now with the tools that we were already bogged down with pre-pandemic, it's just that much harder. We're swamped at that point. 2, I have always said, if you got rid of substance use disorder and mental health issues, I would be the best solitaire player in the state of Maine, because there'd be nothing for me to do. It is endemic. It is in virtually every case. I do believe that most people do not wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to commit a crime today. I think most people are just good-natured and they're good people, but boy, you want to see lives get devastated. Infuse it with mental health issues and the lack of services, and infuse it with substance use disorder, and that's where it's just tragic. It's heartbreaking at every corner. So yes, absolutely, every case. Strike that. Can't say that. Man, majority of cases, right? And then finally, the first question was, yeah, here's the thing. Let's engage. So you're the prosecutor, officer. This man, you charged him with disorderly conduct, Class E crime. You agree with that. Class E crime has a $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail, so he could potentially lose his liberty. If he's convicted, he's going to have a conviction for the rest of his life. He's going to have to declare that to any employer that he goes to apply with. And you're saying to me that you're frustrated that you have to generate a couple of extra pieces of paper that actually reflects what happened in this case, or provide us a video of the interaction so that we can then have an opportunity to see what his behavior was and hold him accountable. That's what a defense attorney is going to say to you every time you say, geez, that's a lot of paperwork. If you said to me, boy, it's the same Constitution, and it was, right? 1980, same U.S. Constitution, but the burdens and the requirements, and frankly, if you said to me, how do you get here? It's the federal cases, right? All of these decisions come out of U.S. Attorney's office, and they have, where are any of our U.S. Attorneys colleagues here? No, so let's make fun of them. They have what, 12 cases a year, right? I carry 570 open cases right now. But right now, if you just go into Justware and you open it up, you look at my name, it's right there.
You yourself?
Yeah. So you go to a prosecutor's office, and they say, you got to have all the giglio information for every witness. You have to go out and investigate everything to the nth degree, and then you got to compile it, and you got to turn it over, and they've got all these special rules. Well, that's for 12 cases a year with the FBI to assist you, but those same decisions under the same U.S. Constitution are applied to a state agency functioning as a prosecutor's office, where the same triggers the same liberty concerns and the same constitutional protections. And so if you said to me, how did these burdens get ramped up? It's because, the federal courts are looking at these concerns. They look at the U.S. Constitution, they read it, and they say, yeah, those protections are there, so you got to fulfill them. And then you come back to an office that has 50 times the caseload and, you know, a fraction of the resources, and you say, and you've got to meet the same standards. That's how you get there. And it's not horrible, right? I believe in the Constitution. I believe you should protect people's rights. And our job is to ensure people's rights are protected in the courtroom. That's what a prosecutor does. That's what makes us awesome. We're like heroes that way, right? But the fact of the matter is, it's overwhelming. And just as an officer, having to sit down, and it's like, geez, where I used to do 5 in an evening, now I can only do 1 because I'm trying to get through all that paperwork. We have to process it on our end. And in those cases, if it's coming from the law enforcement officer, it has to come through my office, as we talked about. And so all of that information needs to get processed and digested. And we've done things. We engaged in share file, right? It used to be the officers would come in, they'd hand us a stack of paperwork for a case with 5 CDs. We would then take it and we would copy it and we would hand it to the defense attorney. And then the defense attorney would say, well, you didn't give me this page. And we wouldn't have an exact copy of it. So we would go to the officers and say, hey, it looks like we didn't get this CD. And the officer would say, yo, I gave you that CD. And so all that's changed because we use the cloud now on a secure drive where everything they give us gets uploaded to a share file drive, right, a folder. We connect the defense attorney to that folder, and we rely on the folder. So everybody's looking at the same thing. So we're using technology to try to alleviate some of that burden. So they're not like a multimedia publishing house where they're producing CDs every time a defendant fires his attorney and we need a fresh copy of CDs. We're trying to make it so we just take off one email, we put on a new one. But it's still overwhelming. So you're asking the right questions. But the reality is more resources.
Can I check with staff what time and how much time do we have left?
About 13 minutes.
Oh, okay. Counselor Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So first off, thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us, because I think that this is one of the biggest issues that I heard when knocking on doors and what I've heard for the last couple of years. As a lifetime resident of Lewiston, and I'm sure most of my counselors will agree, there does feel like there's an uptick in these petty crimes and things happening. You know, people peeing in public and drinking and which seem like little things that we should be able to fix. And I appreciate that you've brought this to our attention, because I think that our community needs to hear exactly how this is happening, because there are a lot of assumptions made when you don't know the detail of how a job is done. That, well, why aren't we doing this, or there's this and this? So I really think that you did a great job, and I appreciate you coming to this. I have a couple of questions, though. So it sounds to me like you're already doing some non-traditional ways of handling things, like suggesting that somebody would go to this counselor for like maybe a drug thing or something, and we could drop the case for you and stuff like that. I'm wondering if there are more ways that we can do non-traditional processes and particularly in the police department, especially around the paperwork. Seems crazy to me that we have an officer that is on an 8-hour shift and has to do 6 hours of paperwork. Are there ways or that we could think outside the box that maybe we can get, some civilians to come in and do that? I don't know the legalities of that myself, but to help the police officers to get them back on the street, because I truly feel, as somebody that was part of the Downtown Lewiston Association and had a lot of conversations about what was happening downtown, Officer Gagnon, Ryan down there was a phenomenal thing to see. And it stopped a lot of stuff from happening, because it's just that physical seeing of a police officer will stop some people from wanting to pee on the side of a building or any of these other things, right? So how do we get back to that? And what, as Councilor Clement said, how do we help you so that we can get those officers back on the streets and where they need to be, especially in visible places? Another question I would have, I know that we have one of our, I think there's something in the B Street where there's an officer there, or so there used to be, I'm not sure how that still goes, but is there something that we could think about maybe putting them in a different spot in the city that we might be better, visual to people to see, well, we've got a police officer here, we're not going to do as much. I'm just trying to think of outside stuff and how we can help you. And also, again, to thank you so much for coming, because I think that this is a conversation that we need to do a little bit more and maybe have a little bit more updates on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scott. I can probably answer that question somewhat satisfactorily. Our Ryan Gagnon that was walking on the beat, he'll be back. Right now, we're fighting manpower issues, obviously, just filling the shifts. We're down 7 officers right now. just like anybody else in the world, we're having a hard time with finding qualified people. There's a lengthy process to be a police officer. You can't just pull anybody off the street, give them a gun like you used to, and say, have at it, have fun. There's a lot of training, there's a lot of background checks and such. As Councilor LaChapelle said, is there mental health and substance abuse issues that bring about a lot of the crime? Yes, there is. How are we fighting that? How are we combating that? It's not always with charging somebody with a crime because they're in possession of drugs. It's not always taking them to jail. Sometimes that's necessary, and sometimes that gets them the help that they need if they're not willing to do it themselves. So we do understand that. We currently have two project support U workers that are working with the police. They ride with the police on a daily basis. One of them is a full-time position, the other is a part-time position. In addition, we have a full-time options counselor, David Bilodeau, who follows up on every drug overdose or even potential drug overdose, and also acts in a PSY, I guess, manner with us. So we are trying to make some strides with that, and I think you'll see that I'm coming to you probably, I think it's in February, to discuss making one of the part-time positions another full-time position. So, you know, officers have discretion to some degree, and I think that's important, because we can't always just arrest everybody based on what the totality of everything you've heard tonight. Though sometimes we think it's necessary, it's not always necessary, and we look for other options. So we're in hopes that our PSY workers, our options program, is going to be of assistance to us, and maybe some other programs down the road that we're going to implement if and when possible. Hopefully that answers a little bit of your question.
It's funny, one, the chief's rolling his eyes right now because he kept saying to me, keep short, but don't invite a lawyer to your meeting if you don't want to. That's on you. But two, you know, I was talking to my wife about this very issue, and I was thinking about other industries, the medical industry. Doctors have to dictate stuff all the time, and they have to maintain records of what they've done, you know, obviously, and they're meticulous about it. So whatever the dictation technology or whatever it is they're doing over there, maybe there's something that can be stolen and replicated in the law enforcement community that allows the officer to at least just say, you know, this is what it was, and it prints it, because frankly, you can't just give me an 8-hour video and say, watch this for a disorderly conduct, right? I need a report. I need someone to summarize for me, what am I dealing with? And then I'll go look at the portions of the video that are relevant. But if an officer, maybe there's technology out there that other industries that have to do a comparable level of recording facts exists, and then we can steal it. Maybe that's not the right word.
For DA.
I understand. I understand. Plagiarize. No, don't do that either. We could borrow it.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor
Just
Clement.
as a quick aside, it would seem to me that maybe the medical community and the legal community, the reason for all of these reports and paperwork might be the lawyers. Is that a reasonable assumption? Because we have so many lawyers demanding so much that we got to produce.
It's the
I think-
justice demands. It's
I
justice.
think
You
that
don't
might
need
be
to answer
time.
that.
Listen.
We understand, and we think that the boys in Lewiston are doing a heck of a job despite all of these things, and we continue to stand by them. And we'll do whatever we can, Chief, to help you out, Mr. DA. Let us know. You know how to get in touch with me. We've talked before, and I'd be happy to talk with you anytime if we can provide some type of logistical support or anything that would help to alleviate this. Because it is. We hear about it all the time. De minimis crimes, potholes are big, but, you know, this is as big an issue as anything else that we deal with on a constituent basis.
Well, communication's important, and I've never had somebody say, geez, Andy, you weren't willing to talk to me about it. So as we come up with ideas, as we're working through this together, I'm happy to make it part of a joint endeavor, that we say, okay, these are the issues, let's see what we can do about it.
Thank you both for coming. I appreciate it. Chief St. Pierre, thank you so much for your service, and please tell your officers thank you for us.
I certainly will. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and
Thank you both.
DA Robinson, yeah, I appreciate your balanced approach. Thank you so much for your service. Please tell your DAs thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a
Thank you all.
wonderful evening. We'll be back in just a few minutes. evening. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. And President Council Clement, could you please lead us?
Thanks, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, good evening. I hope everyone had a great new year. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you. You know, I spent a lot of time last night talking about economic initiatives, but I wanted to thank the outgoing mayor, Mayor Kerr, and the previous council for their service. Thank you very much. And I also wanted to thank staff for the wonderful inauguration last night. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, thank you.
Yes, thank you, our pleasure.
I also had occasion to speak to our governor last night, and Governor Mel shares her congratulations with all of you. We will now have a presentation by our legislative delegation, Legislative Sentiment in Recognition of the Gross Smart Maine Award. I think people are coming to the front.
Thank you. So I'm Representative Kristen Cloutier, and I represent House District 60.
And I'm Margaret Craven, and I represent House District 59.
And I'm Representative John Connor for House District 58.
And he does not need a mic. So when I previously sat on the council and served as mayor for a brief period of time, and one of the proudest things that I got to support in municipal office was the Healthy Neighborhoods work and the folks who are behind that. And I think I speak on behalf of the entire delegation that we were thrilled when you all received the Grow Smart Maine Award and recognition. So we wanted to further that recognition with the legislative sentiment. And so I'm just going to read that, and then if you all want to just come forward and accept it, that would be great. So be it known to all that we, the members of the Senate and House of Representatives, join in recognizing the City of Lewiston and the Healthy Neighborhoods Planning Council, which received an award from Grow Smart Maine for the Choice Neighborhoods Plan on downtown redevelopment. We extend our congratulations and best wishes, and be it ordered that this official expression of sentiment be sent forthwith on behalf of the 130th Legislature and the people of the state of Maine. So come on up here and get your sentiment.
Yes, he's on it. Yeah. You should just know.
Thank you. What are we doing, take a picture?
Oh, okay, great. I'm gonna be next to you. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the next item that is on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes, but we're going to bump those to the January 18th meeting. And then the next item is public comment. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. 3 minutes per speaker. Maximum time for all comments is 15 minutes. And at this point, Mr. Mayor, you could just open the floor and see if any members of the public are here to make any comments, and if so, they can go right to the podium and make their comments.
Yes, do we have any member of the public who would like to make any comments this evening?
With that, we can certainly close public comment period and then move into regular business if you'd like.
Yes, seeing none, let's do that.
Okay, great. Item number 1, adoption of the rules to, oh, I'm sorry. All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Councilor of Ward 1. Thank you. Item number 1, adoption of the rules to govern the city council for the ensuing council year. There are 2 items for requested action. The first item is to add a new clause to the council rules, section 8(3)D. The city council representative to the school committee is, as the title implies, the voice of the city council, and as such shall represent the wishes of the majority of the council and not act as a separate and detached agent.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Clement. Second by Councilor LaChapelle.
One more.
We're, I'll tell you why we're keeping track later. Yes, any discussion? Councilor Harriman.
I just had a concern about this particular rule, both philosophically and practically. I feel like we should give our city council representative to the school committee agency to act as they see fit on that committee. They are a full member of the school committee. And then there's also the issue of that the city attorney has pointed out that this is possibly in violation of the charter to have this sort of control, this level of control over that representative.
If I can interrupt you for just 1 second, could we perhaps read what the city attorney provided, their feedback that they provided on this item?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. In his response, rules may not restrict the authority of the council-appointed member when the charter does not. Further, restricting the decision-making of the council appointed to the school committee would muddy the separation roles and responsibility of the council and the school committee, which Section 8 of the proposed rules details. The city council has full authority and responsibility in the law to set the municipal budget. The city council, in consultation with the school committee, shall approve the specific portion of the school budget in accordance with the applicable sections of MRSA 20A and shall establish the mill rate and combination of the overall budget for all city and school budgets. Part B, the school committee has full authority and responsibility in the law to develop the school budget and to establish educational policies in accordance with the applicable section of MRSA 20-A. And following up with the city attorney today, because there was a question raised afterwards, the charter does outline how removal of a school committee works. Further, there's no ability to censure that person. The thought was at that point in time, the school committee member is sworn in as a school, under the school committee governing body versus the city council governing body. And then there would be the question of enforceability.
That's right.
Please continue, Councilor Harriman.
That was all I had.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So as the newly appointed city council representative to the school committee, I would hope that with a unanimous decision last night that you have the faith that I will be speaking for the whole council. I do have it called into question what the definition of majority might mean, because my opinion is that the representative from the city council to the school committee speaks for everybody, not just the majority, but the whole council, and is the one that's going to speak for and to the school committee as to what we are looking at and what we think is important, and also report back to the city council on what the school committee thinks is important and what they're doing. So I'm hesitant to agree with this language because I do not want to set precedents for the future on something that might be stepping on the charter and possibly even a school committee member that is sworn in to uphold the laws of the state of Maine, and we may possibly be stepping on some of those rules and regulations as well. So my personal opinion is before we vote this language in, we either get a more clarification from the state in respect to what a school committee member's role is, and if we would be stepping on that by saying this, and or to not vote for it at all, this particular language. Thank you.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the idea behind having a representative from the city council on the school committee is to be the conduit back and forth between the school committee and the city council. So I think it's imperative that the thoughts and ideas and wishes of the council are brought forth to the school committee. My understanding is in the past, they've had some that have strayed from that and done what they've wanted to do. And I think that defeats the purpose of having a city councilor on the school committee. So I think that the language, whether the language is totally correct, I'm not sure, but I think the idea behind the language is solid because we need the person that we put our faith in to represent the city council on the school committee, because that's what they're doing. They may be a part of the school committee, but they're also a representative from the council to the committee. And I think it's important that they follow what the council is, the council's will. And I guess it's, we are a democracy and majority rules, and if the majority of the council wants something presented to the school committee or ideas brought to the school committee, then, majority rules. I mean, that's the way we work.
Councilor Clement?
Councilor Scott.
Councilor Clement?
I yield to Councilor Scott. She had her hand up, so.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Clement. I guess so. My only question would be, so when you're speaking this language, this is to ensure that the person that is doing the role of the city council representative on the school committee is to speak when the city council has a specific thing they want to talk about and that thing. My concern with some of this language is if there's a special vote or something that happens at the school committee, how would that person know what the majority is thinking if it's how is this going to work? Like, I would know how it would work with the budget and making sure we're, pushing that the city council is really concerned about this amount of money or however that kind of thing is. But would this include having to have the majority opinion before every decision that was made? I guess that's where I'm a little bit gray in that area. Like, how would that work? Because I think that as a school committee rep, if you're sworn in as a school committee member, my role is to make decisions right there on the spot when they're discussing policy decisions, right? Or if there's a disciplinary hearing, some things that I won't be able to maybe talk to the city council prior to having that happen. So I just want to feel comfortable that if something like this were put into place, that I would be doing what the city council would be expecting. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And then make sure that there's not any conflict or of any interest there with anything. Thank you.
Clement?
I think that basically, what we have here, we have trust in this representative. That has not always been the case in the past. I would ask the administrator perhaps to go to Corporation Council, not ask a question as to whether it's legal or not, but tell us what we can do to get this idea across in a rule. That we want to be able to say, if we have an item that we want carried to the school committee, that our representative does that. I'm not looking to hamstring our representative at all, but we were told flat out in one instance, I don't have to do that. Then why do we have a council representative? So
Other than
maybe
the
we
charter
ask-
requiring.
Maybe we ask the attorney, here's what we want to do. We want to make sure that if we have something to go to the school committee, that our representative is required to carry that to them. I'm not looking to micromanage or anything, but I want to be assured that we have a voice with the school committee.
And what council is suggesting, Counselor, is to, if there's something that is strongly voiced at the council level that they want communicated, to adopt a resolution.
So what I'm hearing then is that Corporation Council says to adopt a resolution to carry forth to the school committee?
Correct.
Oh, we can do that. That's not a problem.
If there's a particular subject matter, I'll use the example of a school resource officer. That's probably a good one, is this council can adopt a resolution that gets communicated to the school committee.
Well, I think that'd be sufficient. I have full faith and confidence in Councilor Scott, and I'm sure she's going to do the job and do it in a different fashion than it has been accomplished somewhat in the past. So, whatever it takes, I guess where I put this language forth in the first place, I can withdraw that from consideration from this item, and we adopt the rules as presented.
Sure, that's fine. You did make the original motion for the first item, so that would be fine if you'd like to withdraw.
I would amend it to that.
Okay, you'll be withdrawing it?
Yeah, I'll withdraw that language, and if we have a problem, we'll revisit it and, yeah, do what we have to do, I guess, at that point in time. Hopefully, that'll never happen.
Well, Councilor LaChapelle, were you going to, at this point? Councilor Jelinas?
Point's been made, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Scott?
Thank you. So I would be in agreement with that, and I just want to let my fellow city councilors know that if there is anything that you feel that I am not addressing, I am more than willing to hear that publicly, and you tell me that I want to make sure that we're addressing this, and, because I think that's extremely important, and I think that's a real big part of my role. And I am very comfortable with putting together a resolution and presenting that to the school committee on something that we feel very strongly about. So thank you.
I think you'll find we have no shrinking violets on the dais here tonight, so, thank you.
Okay, at this point, there's a motion to withdraw, or
Right, right, so Councilor Clement has actually withdrawn his motion, which was on the agenda cover sheet, item number 1 in the bottom box, requested action, the very first item, which was basically adding this clause to amend the set of rules. So he has withdrawn that motion. So the next sort of item that would be appropriate to go before the council would be a motion to adopt the rules to govern the city council for the period of January 4th, 2022 to January 9th, 2024 as presented. And as presented would not include the underlined section in your background material, because the underlined section was going to be the addition to be added if this previous motion was adopted. I just want to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page and understanding where we're going. So the next item, Mr. Mayor, would be for a motion, if that's how you'd like to have the council proceed.
And while I understand that the motion, or I mean, this language is now withdrawn, I would just like to add that, yes, when we voted to, or well, when the council voted a school committee rep, at that point, we entrusted you to make decisions and be a school council rep. Like, for sure, I'm quite sure that all of us will give you input, but yes, in my mind, we don't ever get to tell you how to vote. And now I would like I'd like to move to, do we need to move to public comment?
Right,
Or do
you
we-
need a motion first.
A mo-
Need a motion.
Okay, a motion to withdraw the language?
No, so Councilor Clement has already withdrawn the motion, so the motion before you would be to adopt the rules to govern the city council for the period of January 4th, 2022 to January 9th, 2024 as presented.
So
Move for
moved.
passage, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Clement, and seconded by Councilor Jelinas.
Yes, so then you can have council discussion on that motion, if you'd like.
Do we need further, or any council discussion on that?
And then you go to the public if you'd like.
Public comment. Back to the council,
Exactly. yeah.
and call the vote?
Yes, if there's no more discussion, we'll be happy to call the vote. And so we will just call your, as you've observed from past council meetings, we will call your ward number, then you would just say yes or no, or abstain, as you may wish. Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Sure.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, authorization for the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all applications to operate beano, bingo, and other games of chance on behalf of the municipal officers. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all applications to operate beano, bingo, and other games of chance on behalf of the municipal officers during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Jelinas and seconded by Counselor Clement.
You could have council discussion if you'd like.
Council discussion? Counselor LaChapelle?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Is there any way to group all of these together? We have to vote individually for the next 16? Can't we just put there, anybody have a problem with 1 through 16? Let's talk about it, but is it possible to have one vote for all of this?
Well, it is, so it would be basically votes 2 through 9.
2 through 9? I like that
We
idea.
typically have done them separately, should any members of the public have any comment. It usually doesn't have any comment, it's usually just a standard item that we do at the start of every council year, and it usually goes very, very quickly because they're basically routine items, and we're usually done in about 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, addressing the chair, I would respectfully ask if the 2 councilors that approve this, they can withdraw their motion and just make a motion to accept 2 through 9 together. If we've read the packet, this is just giving them the authority for banners, and it's basic, mundane, basic stuff that they do already. So we don't have to vote 9 times saying the same thing. That's just a suggestion.
I appreciate that suggestion, but I think we should just proceed through the packet.
Okay, sure. So the motion before you is item number 2, which is to approve the signing of the bingo and beano games of chance. So if the council has any discussion or questions, they could discuss.
Any discussion? Public discussion? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Okay. Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 3.
Item number 3, authorization for the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all permits for circuses and carnivals on behalf of the municipal officers. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the city clerk and the deputy city clerk to approve and sign all permits for a circus or carnival on behalf of the municipal officers during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Clement, seconded by Counselor Jelinas. Or council discussion? Public discussion? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 4.
Item number 4, authorization for the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to sign all liquor license applications on behalf of the municipal officers. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to sign all liquor license applications on behalf of the municipal officers during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Clement and seconded by Counselor Harriman. Public, or council discussion? Public discussion? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5? Ward 6?
Yes.
And Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 5.
Item number 5, authorization for the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all applications for utility pole permits on behalf of the municipal officers. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all applications for utility pole permits on behalf of the municipal officers during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, Counselor Harriman, and then seconded by Counselor Pease. Discussion? Public discussion? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5? Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 6.
Item number 6, authorization for the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all licenses for closeout permits on behalf of the municipal officers. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the city clerk and/or deputy city clerk to approve and sign all licenses for closeout sale permits on behalf of the municipal officers during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
So
Moved.
Counselor McCarthy and then Counselor Clement. Seconded, council discussion. Public discussion? Back to us. Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5, Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Am I to understand that we are on item number 7, Madam Clerk?
Item number 7, yes.
Item number 7 then, please.
Authorization for the finance director, tax collector, and deputy treasurer to act on behalf of the municipal officers regarding deeds, liens, and municipal investments. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the finance director, tax collector, or deputy treasurer to withhold monies payable by the city of Lewiston to cover taxes due pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes annotated Title 30A, Section 905, to sign on behalf of the city the necessary deeds and liens and tax settlements, and to invest funds in accordance with Maine Revised Statutes annotated Title 30A, Section 5706, during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Pease and seconded by Counselor Jelinas. Council discussion to the public. Back to the council. Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 8, please.
Item number 8, authorization for city administrator and/or deputy city administrator to approve or deny all requests to hang banners, post community event signs on municipal property, and place temporary signs, flags, and decorations in the public right-of-way on behalf of the municipal officers. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the city administrator or deputy city administrator to review and approve or deny all requests to hang banners, post community event signs on city property, and place temporary signs, flags, and decorations in the public right-of-way on behalf of the municipal officers during the period January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
Counselor Pease, Counselor McCarthy, seconded. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Counselor Harriman.
I was just curious as to, are there any examples of these particular signs or banners that we could just use as an example?
Typically, it's nonprofits doing special events is what we restricted them to.
And are there any particular guidelines or anything, or that we use to decide which ones to allow, or has that typically not been a problem?
It hasn't been a problem. We do have some general guidelines. We typically, like I mentioned, we restrict it to nonprofits. Usually it's for a special event. Or if they're doing kind of a campaign fundraiser, you see that a lot with the United Way with their thermometer that they use. So those are the general, every once in a while you may have a different event or a sponsored event that's co-sponsored with the municipality. As one of the co-sponsors, you might have banners related to those events as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Public comment? Back to the council. Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3, Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 9, please.
Item number 9, authorization for deputy city administrator and/or finance director to have signatory authority for the city administrator when the administrator is unavailable. Requested action, ordered that the city council hereby authorizes the deputy city administrator, or in the absence of the deputy city administrator, the finance director, to have signatory authority for the city administrator when the administrator is unavailable during the period of January 4th, 2022 through January 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Counselor Pease, moved by Counselor Pease and seconded by Counselor Harriman. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you. Number 10.
Item number 10, appointment of city council representatives to various boards and committees. The motion is on the attached vote sheet. I'd be happy to read that all for the record if you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Motion to approve the following appointments of the city council representatives to the various boards and committees. 911 Committee, Councilor Clement. Airport Board of Directors, Councilor McCarthy. Androscoggin County Budget Committee, Councilors Pease and Councilor Scott. Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments General Assembly, Councilor Clement and Councilor LaChapelle. Community Development Block Grant Committee, Councilor Jelinas. Complete Streets Committee, Councilor Harriman. Housing Committee, Councilor Harriman. LA Transit Committee, Councilor Harriman. Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, Councilor LaChapelle. Lewiston Area Public Health Committee, Councilor Jelinas. Loan Qualification Committee, Councilor Clement. Library Board of Trustees is the mayor by position. Maine Municipal Association Legislative Policy Committee, Mayor Shalene and Councilor Clement. South Park Industrial Park Board of Directors is the council president and the mayor by position, and Youth Advisory Council, Councilor Scott. And this would require a motion by the council to make those appointments formal.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor McCarthy and seconded by Councilor Pease. Discussion. Public discussion? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Council from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0. And then we will also note, Mr. Mayor, that the council president has appointed to the Finance Committee himself and Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. Item number 11.
Item number 11, appointments to various city boards and committees. There are 3 items for requested action. The first item does not require any council action and is just to receive the mayor's appointments to the various city boards and committees. And I would be happy to read your appointments, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like.
Please.
Sure. So the mayor has appointed to the Board of Appeals, Paula Maselli, to the Complete Streets Committee, Robert Rand and Tobin Williamson, to the Finance Committee, Roger Philippon, to the Forestry Board, Geneva Larita, Historic Preservation Review Board, Margaret Craven and Mark Lee, and to the Library Board of Trustees, Barbara Benjamin McManus, Karen Schote, and Mariah Pfeiffer. The next item for requested action is to approve the mayor's nominations regarding his appointments to the Housing Committee, 911 Committee, and Planning Board. And council vote is required to confirm the nominations, so we can do all 3 committees separately, if that would make the most sense. The first committee for nominations is the Housing Committee. There are 3 positions on the Housing Committee. For Lewiston homeowner position, the mayor has nominated Cara Corshane. As a tenant to the multi-unit, the mayor has nominated Amy Sanchez as an owner of a multi-unit building, Jeffrey Padham. So those are the 3 nominations to the Housing Committee. We can take each committee separately if you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, that will be fine.
Okay, so the next motion that would be in order would be to approve the mayor's nominations to the Housing Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Scott and seconded by Councilor Jelinas. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor LaChapelle.
would it be possible, Madam Clerk, to get, if we're going to vote on somebody or something like that, would it be possible to get these names ahead of time instead of walking in and just being presented to it 10 minutes before we're supposed to vote on it?
Sure, so we sent those out to you when we received them. We emailed them out to you earlier today, but I know it was the middle of a workday, so I do understand that. So when we received them, we forwarded out to the full council, and then we also provided paper packets at your place setting tonight.
Is there any timeline on when you're supposed to receive something to get it in a timely manner to councilors before we have an opportunity to vote?
There's no specific timeline regarding appointments specifically. The agenda packet would typically go out the Friday before the Tuesday meeting. Of course, this past Friday was a holiday and City Hall was closed, so we issued the agenda packets on Thursday, which was a day earlier because of the holiday closure. But typically, we strive to have the agenda material in the agenda released and posted by Friday afternoon by 4:30 for a Tuesday night meeting.
Thank you.
I would like to add that the that the Madam Clerk distributed to all of you when she received it from me.
Mayor?
Councilor Clement.
I don't think Councilor LaChapelle's request is out of order at all. I would like to have this with our agenda packet if we're going to be voting on it. I don't think that's unreasonable. I thought we kind of settled that in the last term, but I knew a lot of the councilors have not got their laptops up and running with the city email and everything. I was not able to get all of my email today due to a personal situation, but I just think it's reasonable to have those ahead of time. We may know something that we think you should be apprised of before we vote, we'll just leave it at that. There may be a reason there that you should be apprised of something, and we'd like to be able to give you the benefit of having that before we vote on it. Otherwise, I think what would probably happen is somebody would look to table those, and, it prolongs things and makes it a little bit cumbersome. So if we have it ahead of time, I think that's reasonable to have it with the packet. I don't know whether there's agreement on the board on that or not, but I don't think his request is at all unreasonable.
Further discussion? Councilor McCarthy.
Mr. Mayor, I happen to agree. I just got here tonight. Due to my own issues, I haven't had a chance to set up a email account with the city, and so I just got these when I sat down at my desk. Nothing jumps out at me as far as the people that are being nominated, but it would be nice to at least make a knowledgeable vote ahead, make the determination ahead of time, so when I'm asked to vote on something, I know what I'm voting on.
Councilor Pease.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea if we could get it ahead of time. I think we ought to make sure that from this point on that we do, from this point on that we do get this information ahead of time so we can review it and research it ourselves. God forbid, we would not want to embarrass the mayor in any form, so we'd like to make sure that what he appoints is legit and safe for him. Thank you.
Further discussion from the council? So, Madam Clerk, at this point, can we table this motion to allow councilors time to review the applications?
Sure, that's fine. Someone can make a motion to table it to the next meeting of the January 18th.
January 18th?
Yes.
And am I understanding that that would be the next time that we would have opportunity to vote on this?
That's the next regularly scheduled city council meeting, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, Councilor LaChapelle.
Mike, thank you. This was in no way to table this right now. You don't have a slate of 40 people. I'm familiar with some of these people, and I'm fine with it. I didn't know that you did not submit this stuff earlier, and that I didn't know if you gave this stuff last week to them, just finding out that it just came in today. We're all new in our position, and we're all trying to get going. I'm fine approving this right now. I'm just asking it as a courtesy in the future, if we'd have, if we're to vote on it, that we just have a little lead time before we vote on it. I'm totally fine voting on it right now. I guess it's more of a procedural thing, or just a request to you, to the clerk, or whoever the powers may be. Apparently, we are the powers may be, that this just be done earlier. So I'm fine moving forward right now. We have a 2-year stint together, and just in the future. That's all that's just my request on it.
I appreciate your clarification. Thank you. Councilor Pease.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with that. There's no reason why we should table this. I've looked through the packet. Like I said, I've checked them out myself for what time I had, and I'm willing to approve this.
Councillor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would stand to be corrected by Madam Clerk if this is the case, but some of these all are term specific, so most of these have expired now, and we might have boards and commissions that'll be meeting. I know the Finance Committee will be meeting Monday night, and for lack of a member, I don't think our language or our charter allows the appointee to carry until their appointment is sworn in or approved, right?
You were correct on all your comments,
So,
sir.
yeah, we should go ahead tonight, Mr. Mayor. I fully concur with the sentiment expressed here. I don't see any reason tonight. I think the request is reasonable as we go ahead in the future. This is all a learning curve. We're all starting out. And let's, as we said last night, let's get her done.
Further discussion? Councillor Scott?
I just want to concur, I agree. There's an opportunity, there's a chance here that some of these boards may be beginning to meet, and we may not appoint somebody before the 18th, our next meeting. So I think it's important that we move forward with this right now, especially if the whole council is willing to do that.
I appreciate the council's consideration. Thank you. Where are we, Madam Clerk?
So we've had council discussion. I don't believe we've gone to the public yet for this matter.
To the public. Back to the council. And just for clarification, we are currently voting on the Housing Committee nominations.
Correct, on the 3 appointments for the Housing Committee, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
And Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0. The next appointment for council confirmation, the mayor is nominating for the 911 committee, Michael LaJoy.
So moved.
Second?
Councillor Jelinas and then Councillor Clement.
We just wanted to sweat a minute, that's all.
Discussion? He's right there.
Well, I would just say, Mr. Mayor.
Stephanie, or
Thank you.
Councillor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just say that I'm so pleased with this nomination and so pleased that, Michael LaJoy is being nominated.
I'm not
Councillor
sure
Clement.
30 years on the fire department qualifies him as any type of expert in public safety communications, but I'm willing to overlook that. And as I'm going to serve with him, I'm going to look forward to having him as a mentor on that committee. Mike's a great guy.
Further discussion? Public comment? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
And then the next item for your consideration is the mayor's nomination to the planning board. He is nominating 2 residents at this time, Shenna Cox and Joshua Najin.
So moved.
Second?
Councillor Scott and then Councillor Jelinas. Discussion. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that both of these nominations are very good nominations. I worked with Shanna Cox on the planning board for the last 2 years and just recently resigned from that myself, and she is an unbelievable member on that planning board that asks some incredible questions that some of us haven't even thought of yet, and she's just always out there willing to push the boundaries and really work what she's doing, and I think she's a phenomenal member of the planning board. And I'd also like to speak on Josh Nagin. He is a neighbor of mine, and he is currently on the Androscoggin Land Trust, as well as the Farmers Market Board, and that gentleman is out there all the time working for this community and is very well-versed in our planning and code, and I would highly recommend him to be a new member on the planning board.
Further discussion from the council? Public comment? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0. And then the third item, Mr. Mayor, for agenda item number 11 in the bottom of the box is to review the nominations submitted for appointment by the Lewiston Area Public Health Committee and to appoint applicants if interested. I will notice in your background material, double-sided, so it's on the back of page 1. The Public Health Committee is nominating two, two residents. There are different positions and seats on the committee. One is a community organization representative, and Corey Brown is seeking renewal, and the committee has nominated her. And Dr. Edward Walworth is seeking appointment as one of the public health expert seats on the committee. And Councilor Jelinas could certainly elaborate, probably, if there's any questions for you.
Do we need a motion?
We would need a motion, yes, for appointment for those positions.
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Jelinas, and then Councilor Pease seconded. Discussion. Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say that for this council to know, I am the city council representative to the Lewiston Area Public Health Committee, and Corey Brown has been on that committee alongside me and has had tremendous contribution. I also am familiar with Dr. Wallace, so I think that these are great nominations, and we should feel confident in them.
Further discussion? Public comment? Back to the council? Please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 13, which appears to be any
Sure, and
other-
actually, Mr. Mayor, we have item number 12, which is reports and updates. This is the time when counselors may want to share at future meetings any sort of updates from various boards and committees that they serve as representatives on. So that this is a typical item that appears on every regular business meeting agenda. So item number 12 would be an opportunity for counselors, or I guess staff for that matter, to share any reports or updates if they had anything.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yes, reports and updates. Councilor Scott.
I just wanted to let everybody know that I appreciate the support that I got for being on the school committee, and we will be having a retreat this Sunday, which is an all-day retreat, and then our first school board meeting is next Monday.
Councilor Clement.
Mr. Mayor, first meeting for this biennium of your Finance Committee will be at 5:30 this coming Monday. We meet at the training room or conference room of the Public Works facility on Adams Avenue, because basically that is a large room and a lot of the stuff comes out of Public Works that we deal with. So it's handy to have them there where all their materials and stuff are. And unless the committee decides to change back to City Hall, we probably would continue to meet there. It's worked well for us for the last 6-7 months.
Thank you. I always wondered why it was out there.
Well, when we left the virtual meetings, there was some concern as to whether or not the planning board and finance committee sometimes oppose one another. And to get the right room, the right place, the right time, we had a retreat, I guess we would call it, most of us didn't even know that facility existed, at Public Works. It worked out very well. I mean, they have capability of doing anything we need down there for media and that sort of thing. Typically, we will have, well, when we had a full engineering staff, we'd have several presentations from several engineers, but since we've kind of dwindled down to about one, I think now, because everyone's found out how easy it is to work from home. And no sense getting dressed up and coming into work if I can do it from home in my pajamas, you know. So we've kept it down there, and it's worked out well for us. I think the members of the committee enjoy it. It's a relaxed atmosphere. I would invite any member of the council to come down and view it. We just spend millions of dollars every year down there in our meetings, so it's interesting. It's a very interesting process. I've had a good time, if you will, for the last couple of years on that committee. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's a very critical thing that the city has. It's just a check and balance, and it has worked out that way, I think, in many instances.
Thank you, Councilor. Our city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder, as you're starting to log into your municipal emails, you will receive a packet related to the strategic planning session that's being held this Saturday, beginning at 8:30 in the administrative conference room. As part of the attached file, you have all of the public comment received and from that solicitation of the strategic planning session.
Thank you.
Any other reports or updates from council or staff? Item number 13.
Item number 13, any other business counselors or others may have relating to Lewiston City Government.
It does not appear so.
Okay, then you can move on to the next item if you'd like.
Item number 14.
Item number 14, executive session to discuss real estate negotiations of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city. Requested action to enter into an executive session pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes Annotated Title I, Section 4056C, to discuss real estate negotiations of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city.
So moved, yeah.
Moved by Councilor LaChapelle, seconded by Councilor Jelinek. Discussion? Public? Back to the council? Call the vote?
Counsel from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5? Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0. Yes, so we can announce for the benefit of the public that the council is now going into executive session. We will be concluding this meeting, and we are not coming back out for any any additional public votes tonight. So basically, we've concluded the meeting, and the rest will be done in executive session.
I have just agreed with everything that the Madam Clerk said. So, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.